So coming back to this, so there is a preprocessor, okay, and then we give it to what is known as we are going to give it to the compiler. Okay, so when we say compile, we use it very loosely, meaning to say we do pre-processing, compiling and something else, the next step also, which I will come to a little later. But actually the compiler is what kicks in after the preprocessor, right? So you take the output of the processor, preprocessor, give it to the compiler, and then we can get another output, intermediate output, which can then be combined in order to get the final executable, okay. So let us understand what the process of compilation is now, right. So if you look at this, when we did GCC file1.c, file2.c, right, it just generated an executable a.out, right, that just worked if you execute it accordingly, right. However, in the actual intermediate files are all deleted and therefore we are not seeing it, okay. That's why in order to understand that, I am going to now use minus I think capital C, small c for only compilation, that is, do not create an executable, okay. So I will remove this a.out so that, and then clear, so that you don't see all this, there is no other file here, we are back to just 2 C files and 1 header file, okay. I will say GCC minus C file2.c, okay. What it has done is it has generated some other file for you, okay. So we are going to understand what this intermediate output file2.o is, right. It's called an object file, right. So let us go and look at the contents of file2.c, right, and as usual I am going to keep file1.h open on the left because I am including that, okay. Now you see this stdio.h I am not going to worry about because that is just needed for printf. I am going to only focus on this fn1 x comma y z equal to this, okay. So z is equal to fn1 of x comma y, and on the left hand side if you look at this function declaration, right, maybe I will write that here, right, function declaration, right. So in file2.c we have used or we have made a call to the function fn1 in which we have passed 2 integers x and y as function parameters to it, okay. Now if I just if I did not have this thing, okay, let us see what happens. That is the whole point of this exercise, okay. I have now, what have I done? I have just commented out this hash include file1.h, right. So if I do gcc minus c file2.c, what is it saying? It's basically saying, it's giving me a warning, okay. It's saying that it does not know what fn1 is, okay, and it is saying that it is implicitly assuming that there exists a function 1 which takes 2 arguments int x and int y. So that's what it says, this minus w implicit function declaration means the compiler is been configured to not flag this error explicitly, and it's just flagging it as a warning, okay. But anyway, I am going to go back now and take and remove that warning by putting this header file back, and therefore everything is compiling properly, right? Now, what I'll do is I'll go to file1.h, okay, and deliberately I am going to change this. I am going to change this particular function declaration to say that it is fn1 of int. That means it's a function that takes just one function parameter and returns an integer. Now, this is not true, but there is nothing sacrosanct about file1.h and file1.c, right? I am just deliberately causing a mismatch in the function declaration and function definition. In fact, we have not even used the function definition of file1. That is in file1.c as yet, okay? So, what I'll do now, I'll go ahead and compile this process. Now, this is very interesting because it is now throwing a compilation error, right? Note what it's saying. It is saying this is minus C. That means we are only doing preprocessor and then compilation. And it is telling you that the function call that you have made in z equal to fn1 of x comma y, you are passing too many arguments to it. How does it know there are too many arguments? Because there is a function declaration in file1.h which says it takes only one particular argument because of this mismatch, right? And therefore, there is a problem in this entire thing, right? So let us just look at this whole thing, okay? File1.h int fn of int, right? And then file2.c, we are saying z equal to fn of x comma y, right? This is throwing a compiler error. Why am I saying compiler error? Because I am doing GCC minus C. It has not even attempted to make the executable now. The compiler is throwing the error and telling you that there is a problem. Now, technically, the compiler is also going to do some things before all this, okay? For example, if I forget a simple semicolon here, right? The compiler will throw the error, right? Compiler job is to throw these errors also. So, it is going to check the syntax of your program, okay? Whether you have a semicolon, whether a function call has a bracket, whether whether you are doing int space something, you have a flower bracket opened, every open flower bracket is closed by a corresponding closing flower bracket and so on. So, that is the obvious job of a compiler, that is syntax check, okay? That is not my interest in this course, okay? Implicitly, therefore, it will do lot of syntax checks. So, as I am assuming all of this is going to pass, right? So, don't come and tell me tomorrow that the job of a compiler is to do syntax checking. Of course, it will do syntax checking, but that's the obvious part of a compiler, right? So, assuming all syntax checks pass, if file1.h has this definition and file2.c is trying to call that function in this particular way, you straight away get a compiler error, right? Now, what I will do is I will go ahead and basically fix this compiler error int, okay, and then I will do GCC minus this. Everything seems all right, okay, everything seems okay. However, if I just remove this alone, it is not sufficient for it to generate the executable. So, you go do ls, there is no a.out yet, and it seems to be saying something here, undefined reference to fn1, ld returned 1 exit status, Okay, LD means the linker. Okay, so now I will write another case, file1.h is int fn of int comma int, right. Then file2.c is z equal to fn of x comma y. That means these two are consistent with each other, right. In this case, these two were not consistent with each other. That is why you got a compiler error. If you now compile this, just compile this, that is, you do gcc file2.c, right, you will get what is known as a linker error. What is the linker error? Unknown function fn1. It has no idea, so this is fn1, I am sorry, right, all of this is fn1 or fn, I do not remember that, fn1, yeah, okay. So you are getting now a linker error, okay. So that means what is actually happening is, after this there is something known as a linker. The output of the compiler, which is the object file, and I will tell you what the object file is in some time, is now going to go into a linker for final assembly into the executable. The output of this is what we call the, right, this is what is a dot out, right. So the problem now is that if I just compiled file1.c, right, or file2.c, then GCC, the compiler, is doing pre-processing on file2.c, it is compiling file2. That intermediate output from the preprocessor, and then linking only this file2.o, right, it is only trying to work with file2.o output, right, in which case the function definition fn1 is not known, okay. And therefore what you need to do now is not just gcc minus c of file2.c, you also have to do gcc minus c of file1.c. Just to recollect what is in file1.c, it is that it is basically going to give a definition to this function fn1, and therefore technically it should know that there is a function and it's fn1, and it should also know the exact definition of that function, okay. So if you just do minus c, right, and then you give it file1.o and you do gcc file2.o, right, this is just a linker job. That means GCC is now working on the object file, okay, generated by the compiler, and you are trying to link that. If you just give file2.o, there is no definition for fn1, so you also got to give it file1.o. You do GCC of these two object files, then file2 is making a call to function fn1, file1 has the definition for fn1, and these two can be put together and you will get the executable. The a.out file would have got generated on the left extreme here. So you do a.out and the exact executable will execute and give you the right answer. So this is how the whole process of pre-processing, compiling and linking happens, okay. So when you get an error, you must be very clear about what kind of error are you getting, right, because typically, like I told you, we don't run it in these steps, right. What do? You do file1.c, file2.c, and we just compile. Now if there is a problem, right, now you see what happens. Okay, let me go back and create a mismatch in the, let us say I deliberately create this mismatch. fn1 function declaration is taking only one parameter in the header file, right, and I do, right, it's basically giving you a certain error, right, declared here conflicting types, int fn1, fn2, it is giving you all sorts of information. You have no idea whether the compiler is throwing the error or the linker is throwing the error. So if you understand this whole process, it's more likely that you will understand where the error is and you will be able to fix it also better. Okay, but anyway,